So as I was talking about, we were talking about death, and the group of spirits that comes in and helps with death. And you probably have experienced them in your real life many times. They're around you all the time. You have a spirit family who um, you've done a lot of work with in all your different past lives, and you also have other versions of yourself that are all under your higher self. Um, all sorts of things. Best friends from past lives, family members, a lot of beings that love you that aren't incarnated right now. Your personal angels, all these things um, are in the works. So you can see this. If you've ever been around someone who dies, there's a lot going on energetically other than the person dying. And you can tell a spirit does come into the room. This is what people call, like when death comes. You can feel a spirit come in and kind of help the transition take place. So with my grandmother, I knew she was going to pass, and she was in Iowa, and I'm in Hawaii. And if you're like, okay, how are you talking to her spirit 3,000 miles away? You can talk to spirit anywhere, and you can communicate with anyone's spirit instantaneously. It literally only involves focusing on them. So anytime that you're bad talking someone, or you're talking about someone in general, they know. Subconsciously, you can feel it. If you get a pressure in your head, if you're just sitting around, you're having a great day, you get a pressure in your head and you feel something, you can tell someone's talking about you or thinking intensely about you. And if you focus on it, you can tell whether it's a positive or negative thing, depending on the frequency of the energy that you're feeling. So that's all awesome. Even that right there is something that can be honed really, really intensely. So you can do it by just sitting in meditation a lot, and then when you're sitting, it happens from time to time where you'll be in meditation and someone will be talking to you, and you'll know, and you'll see them. So then you can kind of just remember what that feeling feels like, and take it out into your waking life. And then when you're awake and in your regular state of being, you start to pick up on it, and you start to focus on it, and you do get to a point where later on, when people are talking about you or thinking about you, you know who it is and what they're thinking. So this is the first step in being able to read people's thoughts, or it's one step. There's multiple paths you can take to do this, but all of it is just silencing your energetic sphere enough that influential energies all around you become very obvious what they are. So we won't get into that right now, but you can take what you will out of that. So as my grandmother was passing, I was watching her spirit, and for a couple days before she passed, she was in a lot of pain. She had a brain tumor, so I was kind of watching that, helping with the energy from that, just grounding her a lot, and I was watching her go out of her body and communicate with the spirit world back and forth. So she needed to sleep a lot so she could kind of make the right preparations. So then as she died, my mom texted me and was like, your grandma passed away a few minutes ago. So at that point, I had been in and out of meditation for a while, and so I just went back into trance again, and it was awesome. I got to focus, and from what I've seen, and I'll give you an account of what I've seen when people die, it seems that there is one big hub that everyone goes to, no matter what your religion, just based solely on this planet. It's for this planet specifically. I do believe that every other planet has their own sort of transitioning hub and spirit world, and they're connected. So depending on where you're at in your path, when you don't have a body, you can travel between them, or some you can't. It just depends. So as she passed on, in my meditation, I just got silenced. I focused on her frequency, which you can focus on anything's frequency by going into trance and getting really, really quiet in and of yourself. And then you can either say something's name. I usually say, if I want to focus on someone's energy, I say their name a couple times in my head and then match that energy on my crown chakra up here. And in doing so, you turn to their radio station. So as long as you're quiet, and when I say quiet, I mean really, really relaxed, and you've stopped your thought process, then you're able to pick up on their frequency. And in doing so, you can know anything you want to know, and you can communicate with their spirit. So I did this with my grandma, and as she did this, I watched them help her transition. It was really cool. It was almost, what is it like? Maybe like the medical tent from MASH, or I guess like a more recent example would be like the recovery wing in Harry Potter, where they would go. There's a lot of beds. There's a lot of spirits who that's their job. That's something they're working on, is to help people transition. So depending on the various layers of trauma that a person's experienced, certain things happen. Some people can transition out of this life into the spirit life, and we'll just call it nirvana. Quickly, really quickly. If you're ready to go, you can just basically just walk through, and then all of a sudden you're there. But a lot of people, it's a pretty big shock. Depending on what your religious beliefs are, how cemented they are, it can take some time. If you die at war, that can take some time too. There's all sorts of trauma that you go through. People die in all sorts of crazy ways. We all know that. But so as I watched her, she started to transition. She went to this room. There were people. She had to like sit down on a bed. And there were like spirits around her, and they were helping her and assuring her. And what I saw, and I've read this multiple times too, is that the spirits will appear to you in the way that you expect them to. So depending on what your religious beliefs or non-religious beliefs are about what happens when you die, these spirits will appear to you in whatever way makes you feel the most comfortable, because it is quite a shock of a transition. Because you do lose your physicality, which has a shitload of your sensory input, but you also gain an unfathomable amount of other stuff that we really can't guess at while we're alive. And I definitely don't remember from my last time being without a body. So I watched her go through this, and she seemed to handle it pretty well. It didn't take too long. And so then after that, she was kind of led out to this area. We'll think of it as this building right here. And she kind of walks in this way and sits down on a bed. And they're like, "Oh, hey, are you okay?" You know, she's kind of dizzy and disoriented. And they're like, "Oh, you know, we'll help you out." And then she walks out there, out of this building. And then there's this huge, massive amount of spirits. And I recognized very few of them. I did recognize my grandfather. He was there. And other than that, there was just all these different spirits that cared about her from past lives, and I don't know what else. And they all appeared young. My grandfather looked like a 1920s boxer, which he's actually was born a little later than that, but he was really thin, muscular, had like big mustache, dark hair. Not really in a way that I've ever seen him, and really, really happy and light. His physicality wasn't like that. It wasn't like he was physical in a sense, but being in meditation, you're not really focusing on how physical something is. You're more just focusing on the energy of it. So as I watched her transition, I watched her come through this introductory chamber. Then she went out, and she was, it was like she won the lottery. I mean, she was so happy. Like Publishers Clearinghouse, or a soldier coming home from war, is what it reminded me of. She was just like the greatest thing ever. She saw all these people. She recognized all these spirits. They were all ready for her. And then from there, it was no more. It wasn't crazy. I mean, as much as you might think, from all the things that we've been programmed and the things we've studied about the afterlife,